Every year, thousands of first-time cruisers walk up to the terminal expecting a smooth, easy start to their vacation, and instead they run straight into the one mistake that wrecks the entire boarding day. A 26-year-old from Austin showed up without a single printed document, and she spent almost 4 hours stuck in a holding line while other passengers were already ordering drinks by the pool. A 41-year-old from Denver forgot to charge his phone the night before, and when it mattered most, he could not pull up his boarding pass at all. Boarding day looks simple from the outside, but it is actually the most mistake-prone part of any cruise, more than packing, more than picking a cabin, more than choosing an itinerary. I am walking you through 25 things you need to know before your first cruise boarding day, and number 1 is the single detail that decides whether you board in 20 minutes or wait in line for 3 hours. Stick around because several of these mistakes happen before you even reach the terminal, and by the time most people realize what went wrong, it is already too late to fix, so pay close attention, especially if this is your very first time stepping onto a cruise ship. Before we get into the list, if you are planning your first cruise this year, go ahead and hit that like button right now. It genuinely helps more first-time cruisers find this exact video, and subscribe to Senior Cruise Secrets so you always know what is coming before you get to the terminal, and can plan your first cruise with a lot less stress and far fewer surprises than most first-timers actually experience. Number 25. Expect delays and stay patient during the boarding process. Even with the best planning, boarding day rarely runs exactly on schedule. A 34-year-old from Sacramento arrived exactly on time and still waited 2 hours because customs clearance was backed up that morning. Ships process thousands of passengers through the same doors in a few hours, and any weather issue or extra security check pushes every boarding time back. Here is what you do. Build in extra time on both ends, bring something to keep you occupied, and treat any posted boarding time as an estimate rather than a guarantee. The moment you accept that patience is part of the process, the whole day gets easier. This next mistake is the one that turns a short walk into a much longer detour. Number 24. Double-check your cabin number before leaving the terminal. A 29-year-old from Phoenix walked toward a cabin that was not his anymore because he had been upgraded days earlier and never noticed the change on his printed papers. Paperwork updates do not always sync with what gets printed at home. Here is what you do. Confirm your cabin number on the app or the screen at the gangway the moment you scan in, not the paper you printed a week ago. Confirming it takes only a few seconds and saves you an annoying walk in the wrong direction. Next up is a step almost every first-timer skips completely. Number 23. Read the fine print before you sail. A 38-year-old from Nashville needed to cancel a shore excursion for a family emergency and learned the refund window had already closed, a detail buried in her booking confirmation. Most travelers assume cruise policies work like hotel or airline policies, and they simply do not. Here is what you do. Spend 15 minutes before your trip reading the cancellation policy, the onboard credit terms, and any medical or age restrictions for your sailing. It is not exciting reading, but it prevents expensive surprises later in the week. This next mistake can quietly follow you all the way to disembarkation day. Number 22. Check for cabin damage and report it right away. A 44-year-old from Orlando enjoyed her cruise and was charged for a stained carpet on disembarkation day that had clearly been there before she boarded. Damage claims get processed after guests have already left the ship, so your word alone carries no weight without evidence. Here is what you do. Take a short video walking through your cabin the second you open the door and say the date out loud while you record it. If you cannot prove it was already there, you may end up paying for it yourself. This next tip is the one that makes the rest of your week noticeably smoother. Number 21. Meet your cabin steward early. A 31-year-old from Charlotte introduced herself within 30 minutes, asked for extra hangers and a mattress topper, and had both by dinner, while her cabin mate waited until night 1 and was told supplies were gone. Ships only stock a limited number of these small extras per sailing. Here is what you do. Find your steward in the hallway soon after boarding, introduce yourself, and politely ask for anything you might want for the week. A friendly early introduction genuinely changes the level of service you receive for the rest of the cruise. Coming up next is the step that keeps you from getting lost for the first 2 days straight. Number 20. Learn your ship layout on the first afternoon. A 25-year-old from Tampa spent nearly an hour searching for the dining room on formal night because she never studied the deck plan. Most first-time cruisers assume they will figure it out as they go, and instead they waste vacation time wandering in circles. Here is what you do. Pull up the deck plan in the app on your first afternoon and physically walk to the dining room, the pool deck, guest services, and your muster station. 20 minutes of exploring on day 1 saves you hours of confusion later in the week. Next up is something you genuinely cannot afford to put off. Number 19. Book dining and shows immediately. A 47-year-old from Seattle waited until day 2 to book the steakhouse and the top-rated show, and both were completely sold out for the week. Everyone on the ship has access to the same limited reservation slots, and demand is highest right when boarding begins. Here is what you do. Open the app the moment you connect to the ship network and lock in your dining times and show reservations before you finish exploring. A few minutes spent booking early can be the difference between a great evening and a fully booked disappointment. This next one determines how smoothly your onboard spending goes for the entire trip. Number 18. Set up your onboard account immediately. A 36-year-old from Houston tried to buy a soda an hour after boarding and could not because his onboard account was never activated, and he spent part of his first afternoon at guest services instead of the pool. Some bookings require you to manually confirm your card details even after checking in online. Here is what you do. Open the app or visit a kiosk as soon as you board and confirm your payment method is active before you buy anything. It takes 2 minutes and prevents an annoying interruption to your first day on board. Coming up next is a rule that catches almost every guest with a drink package. Number 17. Know the drink rules before boarding. A 22-year-old from Miami brought a bottle of wine expecting it to be allowed freely, only to have it confiscated at security because her cruise line had a strict 1 bottle per stateroom policy she never checked. Every cruise line publishes different limits, and travelers often assume the rules are the same everywhere. Here is what you do. Look up your specific cruise line policy on alcohol, drink packages, and age minimums before you pack a single bottle. Knowing the rules in advance means nothing gets taken away from you at the door. Next up is a packing habit that makes your first afternoon far more comfortable. Number 16. Keep your swimsuit easily accessible for day 1. A 32-year-old from San Diego wanted to jump straight into the pool after boarding, but her swimsuit was buried in a suitcase still sitting outside her cabin door. Checked luggage will not reach your cabin for several hours after you board, sometimes not until evening. Here is what you do. Pack your swimsuit, sunscreen, and a change of clothes in your carry-on rather than your checked bag. That way the pool deck is available the moment you step on board instead of hours later. This next tip solves a problem most people do not realize exists until it is too late. Number 15. Fly or drive in a day early. A 49-year-old from Chicago booked a morning flight on embarkation day, hit a weather delay, and watched the ship depart without her, losing 2 days of her cruise along with hundreds of dollars in rebooking fees. Cruise ships operate on strict departure schedules and will not wait for a late passenger. Here is what you do. Arrive at your port city the day before your cruise whenever possible, especially if you are flying in from out of state. 1 extra hotel night is a small price compared to missing the ship entirely. Coming up next is a small item that solves a surprisingly common embarkation day problem. Number 14. Pack a refillable water bottle for embarkation day. A 53-year-old from Las Vegas spent her boarding afternoon dehydrated because she assumed water would be readily available everywhere she went. Free water stations exist, but are not always obvious when you first board. Here is what you do. Bring an empty refillable bottle through security and fill it at a buffet or pool deck station as soon as you get on board. It is a small habit that makes the entire boarding afternoon noticeably more comfortable. Next up is a step that protects your belongings during one of the most chaotic parts of the day. Number 13. Label and track your luggage. A 28-year-old from Philadelphia had her suitcase mistakenly delivered to a cabin 3 decks away and did not see it again until late that night. Porters move enormous volumes of luggage in a short window, and generic black suitcases are nearly impossible to tell apart. Here is what you do. Attach a brightly colored luggage tag or ribbon to your bag and write your cabin number clearly on it. A little visual distinction goes a long way toward getting your bag to the right door quickly. This next step is one that safety officers take very seriously, and so should you. Number 12. Finish the safety video before sail away. A 39-year-old from Baltimore assumed the video was optional and left it running in the background, only to be flagged as incomplete and asked to redo it right before sail away. Maritime law requires every passenger to complete this safety information, and ships track completion electronically. Here is what you do. Watch the safety video attentively through the app or your cabin television as soon as you are settled. It only takes a few minutes and keeps the entire ship on schedule for everyone else. Coming up next is the safety step you should physically walk through, not just watch on a screen. Number 11. Locate your muster station first. A 42-year-old from Minneapolis had never walked to his assigned muster station and struggled to find it during the drill while an officer waited for him. Muster drills move quickly, and crew members keep track of who has checked in. Here is what you do. Look up your muster station in the app right after boarding and physically walk there before the drill begins. Knowing the route in advance takes the stress out of an otherwise confusing exercise. This next tip determines how much your phone actually works for the rest of the week. Number 10. Connect to ship Wi-Fi only after boarding. A 35-year-old Dallas kept mobile data on throughout check-in and ended up with a surprise roaming charge on her phone bill days later. Ports sit near international waters even before departure, and phones automatically search for the strongest signal. Here is what you do. Switch your phone to airplane mode before you approach the terminal, and only connect to ship Wi-Fi once you are on board. This one habit alone can prevent an unpleasant surprise on your next phone bill. Next up is an app you genuinely should not board without. Number 9. Download the cruise line app before you arrive. A 45-year-old from Atlanta tried downloading the app for the first time while standing in the terminal with weak service, and it took nearly 30 frustrating minutes. Ship terminals often have unreliable public Wi-Fi and cellular congestion from hundreds of passengers doing the same thing at once. Here is what you do. Download and set up the app at home on strong Wi-Fi days before your trip and log in with your booking details ahead of time. It is a 5-minute task at home instead of a 30-minute headache at the port. This next step can either save you hours or cost you hours, depending on when you do it. Number 8. Bring printed copies of important travel documents. A 27-year-old from Denver had her phone battery die right at the check-in counter, and without a printed boarding pass, she was pulled aside while staff manually verified her booking. Digital systems are convenient until the exact moment they are not, usually during the busiest part of the day. Here is what you do. Print your boarding documents and any required travel forms and keep them in an easily accessible folder in your carry-on. Digital is convenient, but paper never runs out of battery at the worst possible moment. Coming up next is a habit that keeps those very documents safe throughout boarding. Number 7. Keep passports and documents handy. A 33-year-old from Boston packed her passport at the bottom of her suitcase for safekeeping, then had to dig through her entire bag when asked to show it a second time near the gangway. Terminals typically check documents at both the initial counter and again before boarding. Here is what you do. Keep your passport, ID, and boarding pass in a small pouch or the outer pocket of your carry-on where you can access them instantly. Quick access keeps the line moving for you and everyone waiting behind you. This next tip matters more than almost anything else on this list if it applies to you. Number 6. Have your medications in your carry-on. A 58-year-old from Portland packed his blood pressure medication in his checked bag and did not get access to it again until nearly 6 in the evening. Porters process luggage in large batches throughout the afternoon, with no guarantee your bag arrives quickly. Here is what you do. Pack every medication you need, plus a few extra days' worth just in case, directly in your carry-on bag that stays with you. This single habit can prevent a genuinely stressful and potentially dangerous situation later in the week. Next up is the bag that carries everything else you need on boarding day itself. Number 5. pack a carry-on for embarkation day. A 30-year-old from Cleveland assumed she would have access to her belongings shortly after boarding and packed nothing extra, leaving her without sunscreen, a swimsuit, or a phone charger for most of the afternoon. The sheer volume of luggage being processed across an entire ship guarantees delays. Here is what you do. Pack a carry-on with medications, chargers, a swimsuit, sunscreen, and a change of clothes. Essentially anything you want within the first few hours on board. Treat it the way you would treat a personal item on a long flight. Coming up next is a habit that prevents a very specific and very stressful boarding day scramble. Number 4. Charge all your devices before arriving at the port. A 40-year-old from San Jose had her phone die in the security line, and without a digital boarding pass, she had to step aside while staff manually looked up her reservation. Most travelers focus their charging on the night before a flight or drive, not specifically the morning of boarding. Here is what you do. Fully charge your phone the night before, and pack a portable charger in your carry-on just in case. A dead battery is one of the most avoidable delays on this entire list. This next step should honestly happen weeks before you ever reach the terminal. Number 3. Complete online check-in early. A 37-year-old from Columbus assumed she could check in when she arrived, only to discover her boarding time slot had already been assigned to the very last group of the day. Cruise lines use online check-in data to organize boarding groups well before sailing day. Here is what you do. Complete your online check-in as soon as it opens, usually 30 to 45 days before departure, and select the earliest available time slot. Early check-in genuinely means an earlier, faster boarding experience overall. Coming up next is the footwear choice that quietly makes or breaks your entire boarding day. Number 2. Wear comfortable shoes for boarding day. A 24-year-old from Miami wore new sandals for her first cruise and developed painful blisters before she even reached her cabin. Boarding day distances add up quickly across a massive terminal and an even larger ship, often without anywhere convenient to sit down. Here is what you do. Wear broken-in, comfortable shoes on boarding day specifically, and save your nicer shoes for dinner later that evening. Your feet will thank you by the time you finally collapse into a deck chair. This final tip is the one that ties every other item on this list together. Number 1. Arrive at your assigned boarding time. Of everything on this list, this is the one habit that makes the single biggest difference. A 51-year-old from Sacramento arrived nearly 3 hours early expecting to skip ahead, and instead stood outside in the heat far longer than guests who simply arrived on schedule. Terminals process passengers in organized waves specifically to prevent overcrowding, and arriving early just means waiting in a different location. Here is what you do. Check your assigned boarding time in the app and plan to arrive within that specific window rather than as early as physically possible. Trusting the system that ships have refined over thousands of sailings is genuinely the smartest move you can make on your very first boarding day. Knowing all 25 of these will not matter much if you make one specific mistake once you are already on board that quietly drains your onboard account by the end of the week. A 36-year-old from Portland did everything right on boarding day and still ended up with an extra $200 in charges she never expected on her final bill. In my next video, I am breaking down the onboard spending traps that catch first-time cruisers off guard before they even realize it is happening. If this list helped you feel more prepared for your first cruise, make sure you are subscribed to Senior Cruise Secrets. Drop a comment with your cruise line and sail date so I know exactly who to help next. And I will see you in the next one. Whichever of these 25 you needed most today, save this video so you can come back to it the night before you leave for the terminal, because a calm, prepared boarding day genuinely sets the tone for the entire week that follows. And it is honestly the difference between starting your vacation relaxed or starting it already worn out before the ship even leaves the dock.